Welcome to Designing Luxury LA, hosted by DSI. I'm Taylor Denser, and today we have Cal Henry of 5 Blocks here with us. Cal, thank you so much for joining us.
Of course, I'm so excited.
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of like to just get started by figuring out how you got into interior design, what got you started, what's your background. Tell me a little bit about that.
So I would like to say I stumbled into it, but that would not be true. I think I kind of grew up where I never wanted to do interior design. My mom is actually an interior designer, so I grew up where I was like, you know what, this is definitely what I'm not gonna do, because I grew up in in a design studio, right? Mm-hmm. Where my mom would be like, oh hey, put these samples away, and hey, can you rearrange these into a new color scheme? And I would have to go to people's houses, and I would be going to, just any type of design appointment. And I grew up in a showroom, right? So it's like, instead of going to a daycare, they built me my own little kind of like playroom in a showroom. And then all of a sudden when I was in high school, I realized I actually really liked design. Mm-hmm. So then when I started going to college, I was like, you know what, I'm going to do commercial. That it'll be different enough where I'm not going to follow in my mom's footsteps. That it'll be fine. And then the minute I got out of college, I got a call to do like a community out in Playa Vista, and it was residential. And then I never looked back, and I ended up going straight into residential interior design. And that was that.
Nice. And so you do all residential at this point? Okay.
At this point, I do all residential. Occasionally, I get like the smaller commercial project, like an office, smaller restaurants and things like that. But it is predominantly residential.
Gotcha. And you do all your work in LA? Do you work in any other cities as well?
I would say mostly all LA. You get the occasional like vacation house, right? When you have certain clients that have just been around forever, a lot of people have like vacation houses in the Midwest and in the East Coast. And then we do have like some smaller businesses that have secondary restaurants in like Vegas and stuff, but for the most part it is all I would say like Los Angeles and Orange County.
Gotcha. So sometimes you'll get the call and say, hey, I bought this house in Aspen, can you come help me design it? Yeah. Absolutely. Well, very cool on the background. So over the course of your work, what would you say has been like the most exciting project you've ever done, or even like the most exciting space you've ever designed? Like, tell me about what that space was like.
So I would say most exciting project would be, I did a lot of stuff in Playa Vista when that was developing, kind of in like their second and third phases when they were building like the Whole Foods and a lot of like the townhouses out there. I enjoyed that a lot. I did a good amount of like the lofts and the townhouses out there. I think why I liked it was because in Los Angeles, you didn't have a lot of like that loft living at the time. So the idea of like people owning like different floors was really, really cool. So it was just a different concept. So definitely that was probably for me one of like my favorite like community type projects that I've done. It would rank pretty high on my list.
Yeah, that's really neat. That's really neat. And so 5 Blocks, where's that based out of, or where's the office based out of?
So 5 Blocks, we are in San Pedro right now.
Okay.
So that is kind of like our home and the home to our currently opening showroom.
So we kind of talked about your favorite space to design. Do you have a project that ever didn't go as planned, or may have even been a disaster, but you found a way to kind of recover from it? Or do you have anything kind of like a wild story like that you would want to tell?
I probably have a few. I would say disaster wise, I think one of the biggest projects I struggled with, similar to that concept of like the loft, right? Since we were just talking about it, I think specific to that, one of the things we struggled with over there was with lofts, you forget that like you have a lot of stairs, right? And you can't necessarily move things up and down with the elevators until you get all of your permits in. So at the time I had these huge visions of doing all of the showers in slabs, right? And all of the bathrooms with slab walls and slab showers and slab showers, slab shower seats. And then I realized like you can't get the marble into the loft up 4 flights of stairs. So for a few of those houses, like I could crane lift them in, but for a few of the houses, we did in fact have to bring them up 4 flights of stairs. So I had a few houses where it was just, to me, the emotion that ran through my mind of trying to move like 10-15 slabs up 4 flights of stairs, it was a nightmare, and I'm pretty sure everyone around me just wanted to push me off said flights of stairs,
right?
Because like you think you're moving like a small piece of marble, but then by the time you're 4 flights up, it was just like a nightmare. And we had like one day where I remember we were moving like one very expensive piece where it was like a perfectly cut island where it was sized just the right way, and there's like 8 people moving this one piece. It's a very tight staircase. You're moving it all the way up, and like one of the guys just did not tighten his belt right on his pants, and his pants fell down. So it's like, we're stuck in this staircase. His pants are like down on his knees, and like no one can move. You're like, how do you help this human being whose pants are stuck? We can't turn. You can't put down the slab, and you're like just dying of laughter, and you're like, but please don't drop this like $10,000 piece of stone in this staircase right now, you know?
Oh my goodness.
But yes, I did lose a few slabs in the process, but and in the end, the project did look beautiful.
Good. Wow, that's a wild story of getting there too. And you know, obviously, when your pants are at your ankles, you can't keep going up the stairs too, right? Like, oh man, how embarrassing that person must have felt. Oh my gosh. Oh well, I'm glad that it turned out well in the end. Let's talk about your approach to your design process. Where do you pull inspiration from?
So I would say it's a little different for every project, right? I try to take a step back depending on what the client is looking for. We get so many clients these days that are like very heavy on Pinterest. I would say that's probably like your number one thing, where people are like, look at this beautiful mood board that I brought you. And I'm like, okay, great. Most people, like, they bring you the mood board. They don't necessarily know what they like about it, right? So you're like, okay, let me start here. Like, they're kind of chasing that feeling. I'm like, okay, let me look at this feeling that you put together, and you kind of have to validate that feeling, right? And not necessarily like the execution of it, but more so get in on focusing the feeling. So in terms of like, I would say like design process wise, like inspiration wise, I try to keep like what the client wants in mind and looking at what they're doing, and then also just trying to go after that feeling they're going for, but making sure that it's also keeping in mind what is really happening, right? And what we're currently working with, which in LA, we have a lot of like organic texture and organic feeling, and we have a lot of archways, and I really try to keep people from going backwards per se, right? So when I see things that are maybe a few years older, I try to keep people from spending money on things that maybe would keep it looking from dated. Obviously, I don't want to talk people out of something if they love it, but definitely I try to find like kind of a happy balance between like what their Pinterest board is at, and then also what I would say is more of just currently what makes sense too.
Sure. Do they ever come to you with something from Pinterest and they're like, I want to do this, and you look at it and you're like, oh my God, like, we're not gonna do that?
Oh yeah, totally. Sometimes I feel like I try to be supportive always, right? Because like sometimes you just have to laugh out loud because you're like, okay, this is wild, and I actually like the chaos of it. I will say, like, every time someone comes with me to a wild idea, I'm like, yes, like I love it. I 100% I thrive in the chaos of strange ideas when people bring them. But like I said, I try to zone in on like what the feeling of what they're looking for. Like a lot of the times, like it's chaotic colors or it's chaotic patterns, and like what is it about it that you're going after? And that's what I try to zone in on. Right. Because normally maybe I don't have to do the entire thing, but maybe I can pull like a little bit of the fun out of it and still find a way to do it. Right. You know, as long as like there's no like safety issues or anything like that, then totally I'm still down to like, you know, cause some chaos. Yeah. For sure.
Definitely. You know, and it's one of those things too, where you have to sort of understand functionally how the space is going to be used. And we've talked about this with other designers as well, that the interior designer has arguably the closest relationship with the client of anyone on the project. And so, you know, you pretty much know exactly their routine down to a T. Like it's, you know, and then on top of that, adding in those elements of the chaos or the bright colors and things like that. So that's really interesting. Just kind of a fun question, just for fun. So you can only keep one: lighting, furniture, or art. Which one would you choose? You
know what? I feel like this could cause a riot, but I would actually choose lighting.
Okay.
You know what? And I know don't get me wrong, I love furniture. Okay. Like I love furniture. Yeah. But lighting is incredibly important. And I don't feel like people realize how much you can use lighting to your advantage. There's so many different uses for it that people just, your natural instinct, especially when you are going and you're building a house these days. We see so many architecture plans where the plans are handed over, and it's like always you get a great room and it's like a 6-pack of can lights, and you're like,
Yeah.
Like, thanks so much. Like,
right.
You just gave me the standard set right here. There's so much you can do with lighting in a room where like you could walk into an empty space and just have lighting and it could change your entire perspective. So if I had to choose only one thing, yeah, it would definitely be the lighting.
Yeah, we had we had Linda Murray on the podcast yesterday, and I asked the same question, and that was her answer as well, was lighting. Yep. So I like to get different perspectives and see, what people have to say about that. We kind of touched on this a little bit earlier. So going back to sort of the culture of LA design, how would you describe, if you were to compare it to like New York or Miami or any other major kind of city, how would you describe the LA culture of interior design?
So LA's a little different, right? I guess everyone kind of views it differently. I've always viewed LA as being very experimental. Mm-hmm. I see so many different types of design styles here, and I think a lot of it has to do with the history, right? Where you can be in one neighborhood that has Victorians, and then you can turn around and you have a Spanish revival, but then you also go and then you have these beautiful modern multi-million-dollar homes the next time you turn. It's such a wild, versatile amount of like architecture and design that exists. And then you throw in the fact that you have just as much eclectic personalities, right? And art that exists just in people and fashion and in the film and music industry. When all of that starts merging together, where you have Culver City, where you have the tech side and everything along those sides, then you go east and you have Echo Park and you have everything a little bit with more art. All of that merges together with the interior design side, where things definitely get significantly more experimental in the design, where it's no longer just, okay, maybe I'm a little bit more minimal and then my minimalism is getting a little bit more warmth. It's, okay, well, maybe now I'm getting a little more maximalist and I have pink and yellow kitchens and I have green and red bathrooms and all of these things. You can see so much versatility in the design that like if I were to place you in any given home, you couldn't probably place where you actually were. So I think that's one of the greatest things about LA, is that the fact that I do consider the design to be like very much experimental, where like you can kind of get away with pushing the boundaries of any style out here, and people are a little bit more willing to try it just because you have access to maybe more resources than you would in other places.
Yeah, definitely. I'm originally from the Midwest, and so I lived in the suburbs, and so what you get out there is you get the cookie cutter repeats of the same 5 plans all in this neighborhood, right? And there's just no character to it. It's the same thing over and over. And so when I moved here, and to your point, you have these pockets of LA that are very distinct and have creative differences. And then, like you said, you have all these homes even next door to each other that are completely different. And you just don't see that anywhere, in the Midwest or I mean, unless you go to like the major cities. But that was definitely an eye-opening thing for me as well when I moved here, to just see the diversity in architecture and design, which I think is really cool. What is the craziest design request you've ever received? Like totally outlandish, like maybe something you've never done before where you're like, wow, I don't know how I'm gonna figure this out.
I do have a strange request that I got. It's not outlandish. It's kind of like a weird buyer one. I'll give it to you. Okay. You can contemplate if you want to use it.
Okay.
I did have a client call one day. Strange request, like in process is what I would say. And I had a kitchen. It's a beautiful kitchen. My clients, they're amazing people, right? They're very particular, so they're the type of people you kind of have to walk step by step for everything. We did a Mediterranean kitchen, so it was like a very large kitchen where you had like the main kitchen, you kind of had like a morning bar, and then at the same time you had like a double island. We had already ordered all the cabinets, all the slabs, like we were in the middle of the construction, and then they called me one morning and they were like, hey, like we were thinking about this, we were contemplating the layout of the kitchen, and like for reference, like the kitchen's kind of like rectangular, right? Like I would consider it like a vertical layout. They're like, we think we should change the layout of the kitchen from like vertical to horizontal. We should turn the whole thing in the house. And I'm like, okay, like let me give you a call back. And it's like one of those things where you hang up and you're like, did they just ask me to turn like the entire kitchen? They're like, don't worry about it though. We think it only changes like one cabinet. And in my head, I'm like, like when your eye starts to twitch and you're like trying to act very calm because you're like, you don't want them to panic. And like, you always want to listen to a client, and like, really, I do legitimately, even if the request is totally wild, I want to be like, let me at least look into it. But like, in my head, I'm like, there's like 85 cabinets in this kitchen, and you want me to take a double island full kitchen and turn the entire thing like a whole different orientation, like direction. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna make like a list of like how many cabinets that's actually gonna change. It changed like 27 of the cabinets, you know, and then like I had like accordion doors on like the entire right side where it changed like the whole kitchen, and they were great. Like, I explained to them like just how much it would actually change, and they ended up leaving it as is. But in terms of like kind of random requests that I've received mid-process, that would be like a random request I've gotten mid-process where someone's like fully tried to just turn the entire kitchen in the middle of actually building said kitchen.
That's a little late to do that. That's definitely a little late in the process. Well, and then you come with them to talk about the budget, and you're like, hey, by the way, in order to completely flip the orientation of this kitchen, it's going to be an additional X, Y, and Z. And then they're probably like, oh yeah, no, never mind. We'll go with the vertical layout.
I know. I do tell people that all the time though. Like, I'm like, listen, I can do anything. Like, it's just to what degree you want to spend money on things, right? Like, everyone has a different value in things. Everyone has different priorities. So it just depends on what you want to prioritize and what you want to spend your money on, you know? But technically I could make anything happen.
Right.
You know, it's totally up to you.
Yeah. Just out of my own curiosity, when you, what would you say would consume the most of the budget as far as interior design? Is it furniture? Is it art? You know, what would consume most of that budget?
For interior design, a lot of the times when we're doing something like that's the entire house, like let's say we go in for your architecture plans from the very, very beginning, one of the heavier hitters that people don't always think about is actually the cabinets. Cabinets, built-ins, like things like kitchens, entertainment center built-ins. Like, when we do a lot of built-ins, that tends to be a good amount of the budget straight out the gate. Just because when you're using anything that's like custom, semi-custom, and you're changing the sizes, when you have higher ceilings, doing things like double islands, when you're customizing all the storage, we really want to do something that's not only beautiful in design but also functional. So those do tend to come with higher price tags. So that ends up being a higher price tag than people are normally, you know, a little bit more ready for. And then probably lighting is going to be a really powerful second, and then furniture would probably be like next up there as your top like three.
What would you predict the design trend is going to go toward in the near future?
I don't know. I guess that's kind of a toss, right? Obviously, we have, again, that kind of warmth and texture coming in, a lot of curved walls coming in. We're going more into people creating like specific spaces, right? We're leaving those open floor plans behind, which I'm biased. I never really liked open floor plans, to be honest. So we're going more into like specific spaces where you're carving out individual rooms again. But then on the other side, we're also kind of getting that maximalist trend in, where you're getting drenching, where you're doing lots of patterns and lots of colors in rooms, where you're doing wallpapers and fabric textures and bold colors. So you're going to start seeing like that style evolve, where everything is getting more personal, and it's getting just a lot more of you in it. So all of those like custom and bespoke features, I think, that make your own personal style are beginning to come out for people. And I think that's kind of exciting, because design it's always supposed to be about you. And I think sometimes people always feel the pressure to make it, you know, about what, you know, everyone else wants to see. So I'm kind of excited to see everyone's individual style come out in it too.
Let's say there's a young professional that's watching this and they really want to get into interior design. What sort of advice would you give to this person on, maybe it's, you know, the process of going to school, or maybe they just finished school and they're trying to get their foot in the door here in Los Angeles? It's obviously very competitive. Yeah. What advice would you give to that person?
I would say LA is definitely very competitive, just because it tends to be a hub where people go across the board, right? Whether it's fashion, interior design, anything along those lines. But it also is a place of a lot of opportunity. I do feel like in general, sometimes the best way to get in is definitely via internships these days. I see a lot of places that even if they don't post that they have internships available, I always tell people just to reach out. One of the best advantages between like things like podcasts and social media is that there's a lot of places where even if you just shoot someone a message, if you never get a message back, totally fine, but at least you shoot your shot, right? There's no harm in asking if people are taking on interns, or if you can even have a conversation. Like in any type of position, if I were to get a message from someone being like, hey, do you have the chance to talk about it? Do you have a chance to take on an intern? Would you mind sitting down for something like that? I would always take the time to talk to someone, you know, like I may not be able to do it immediately, but I would definitely make the time for it. And I think a lot of companies are always looking, and I mean, I would hope at least looking to help out, you know. There's not really any time that you wouldn't want to train someone, right? That's the ideal time to bring someone in and train them to do it the exact way you want it from the very beginning. So anytime that you can get in on like that internship type position where you can learn it from the very beginning would be an ideal spot. So I would say if you're just trying to get your start, at least go for the intern. You know, even if people don't post about it, it's still at least your door in sometimes.
Yeah, that's great advice. Well, Cal Henry from 5 Blocks, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We hope to do more work with you in the future.
Of course.
So,
thank you so much.
Thank you.